He didn't notice the voice at first. It was just breathing, soft, ragged, like someone who'd run up the stairs and was trying not to be heard on the other side of his bedroom wall. Liam thought it was the neighbors, until the breathing said his name. And then, every night at 3:12 a.m., the voice came back. A little closer, a little clearer, and a little more like his own. Tonight, you're going to hear what it said. Because this is the story of the last week of Liam Carter's life in room 303. And why, to this day, the lights in that apartment never quite turn all the way off. Liam was 32, lived alone, and would never admit he was afraid of the dark. He'd say he was bad with silence. That's why the TV was always on. That's why he slept with some kind of noise. Fan, rain sounds, late night reruns, anything. The truth was simpler and uglier. When the room went quiet, he could feel it. That heavy, invisible attention. Like a pressure behind his eyes. Like the air itself was holding its breath, waiting for him to notice. His new apartment, room 303, was supposed to be a fresh start. Cheap rent, decent building, third floor, end of the hallway. No roommates, no ex, no drama. But from the first night, the silence here felt different. Thicker, intentional. Like something in the walls had been lonely for a very long time. The first night in 303, he stacked boxes in the living room, plugged in the TV, and let some mindless show play in the background. By 2:45 a.m., he finally dragged himself to the bedroom. The room was bare, just his mattress on the floor, a lamp, and the crooked blinds that didn't fully close. The streetlight outside smeared a dull orange line across the wall. Liam lay down, fully clothed, phone in his hand. A fan app hummed softly. The building creaked, as old buildings do. He was almost asleep when something turned off. It took him a moment to realize what was wrong. The fan noise was still going. The TV in the other room was still muttering. But underneath everything, the building had gone completely still. No pipes, no refrigerators, no distant cars, just a deep, padded silence that felt like someone had pressed a pillow over the entire world. Liam opened his eyes. That's when he heard it. A faint, wet sound from the wall beside his bed. At first, it was just breath. Inhale, exhale. Too slow to be his own. He held his breath to check. The breathing continued. He stared at the wall, heartbeat pounding in his ears. It's the neighbor, he told himself. Thin walls, that's all. Then the breathing hitched, as if the person had realized they were being listened to. A rough, dry whisper pushed through the plaster. Liam. His whole body went cold. He didn't move. He didn't even swallow. He just stared at the wall, his own name echoing inside his skull. The whisper crawled through the wall again, slower this time, like it was savoring each syllable. Liam. He grabbed his phone with shaking hands and checked the time. 3:12 a.m. He didn't sleep for the rest of the night. He just watched the wall and waited for it to say something else. It didn't. Morning made everything stupid. Sunlight poured through the blinds. The wall looked ordinary. A faint water stain in the corner, a nail hole, a smudge from when the movers bumped the mattress. Liam laughed at himself in the bathroom mirror. Just stress, moving, thin walls, someone watching TV next door. I was half asleep." He walked the hallway on his floor, curious. The unit on the other side of his bedroom wall, 302, had a lockbox on the handle and a notice taped to the door. The blinds inside were shut tight, vacant. The wall that had whispered his name had no neighbor. He didn't like that. He didn't like the way the notice on 302's door had old tape marks beneath it, like there had been other notices. Old notices, peeled away, replaced. On his way to work, he told himself he'd heard the building's pipes. At lunch, he upgraded it to a half-dream. By the time he came home, he'd convinced himself he hadn't heard anything at all. He left the TV on louder that night, just in case. That night, he decided to try something new. He told himself it was stupid, but he set an alarm on his phone for 3:10 a.m. If nothing happened, he'd turn it off, laugh at himself, and finally sleep like a normal adult. He lay in bed, the TV glow flickering down the hall. His fan app hummed. The seconds crawled. The alarm buzzed at 3:10. He shut it off and stared at the wall. Silence didn't fall this time. It dropped. 1 second he could hear the TV, the hum of the fridge, a car outside. The next second, everything cut out. No transition, no fade, just off. The only sound left was his own heartbeat and his own breathing. Until it wasn't just his. The breathing in the wall came back, as if someone had been waiting for their cue. Inhale, exhale, wet, shallow, hungry. "Say something," he whispered before he could stop himself. The wall answered. This time the voice was clearer, still dry, still scraping, but unmistakably male. "You turned the alarm off." Liam froze. The voice knew. It had heard. "You're awake now," it whispered. "That's good." His skin crawled. "Who are you?" Liam asked. His mouth felt like cotton. Silence for a beat. Then, softly, "Who do you want me to be?" The temperature in the room felt like it dropped 10 degrees. The voice giggled. The sound was wrong, too close to his ear, even though it was clearly coming from inside the wall. He wanted to get up, to run into the living room, to turn on every light, but his legs wouldn't move. It was as if the bed was holding him, pinning him in place with invisible hands. "You were lonely," the voice continued. "You said it earlier. You said, 'I hate coming home to an empty place.'" He had said that, out loud, to himself, throwing his keys on the counter. No one had been there to hear it. No one human. Liam swallowed. "What do you want?" he asked. The voice inhaled again, closer now, like its mouth was just on the other side of the paint. "I want you to keep listening." Then the silence snapped back to normal. The fridge hum, a car passing, distant pipes. The TV's murmur spilled back in from the living room like someone had unmuted the world. The clock on his phone now read 3:14 a.m. 2 minutes. That was all. The next days blurred together. He went to work with bruised moons under his eyes, drank too much coffee, and told his coworkers he was just tired from moving. He almost believed it, until the nights came. The pattern solidified. Every night at exactly 3:12 a.m., the world would cut out. Only the breathing remained. The voice would whisper through the wall, from somewhere deep in the bones of the building, and it would talk to him. Not about grand cosmic things, not about hell or heaven. It talked about him. It repeated sentences he'd muttered earlier in the day. It recited fragments of thoughts he'd never said aloud. It finished his fears before he could fully form them. "You keep checking under the bed," it crooned on the fourth night, "but you never check above you." The next night, "You pretend you're scrolling your phone, but you're really checking the black reflection in the screen, seeing if there's a shape behind you." It laughed when he flinched. "You hate sleeping alone," it said, "but you hate being watched even more." On the fifth night, it said something different. "You know I'm not in the wall, right?" That sentence rooted inside him like a hook. "Then where are you?" Liam whispered, throat dry. The voice sighed happily. "Closer now." By the sixth night, Liam was done pretending this was stress. He set up his phone camera on the dresser, angled toward the bed and the wall. He downloaded an audio recorder app. He plugged everything in so nothing would die overnight. He told himself this was proof, that he'd wake up and find only silence on the recording, nothing on the video. He'd show it to a doctor, say, "See, my brain is doing something weird. Get pills, get help, move out." That night, he lay in bed and stared at the lens, waiting. 3:11 a.m. The red recording light blinked, a tiny pulse in the dark. 3:12. The TV vanished. The fridge cut out. Noise dropped away. The now familiar breathing oozed through the wall. Liam didn't blink. The camera was watching. It would see. It would hear. "Trying to catch me?" The voice chuckled. "You're not real," Liam said. "You're a hallucination, sleep paralysis, a dream." The breathing grew louder. "Then why do I know," it whispered, "that you hid the boxes from your ex in the closet, and you still smell her perfume on the sweater she left, and you pretend not to?" His chest tightened. He hadn't opened that box in months. He hadn't told anyone he'd brought it here. The voice continued, savoring every word. "You talk to yourself when you think no one is listening. You rehearse arguments you'll never have. You replay that night over and over and over and over." "Stop!" He realized his eyes were watering. "You asked if you drove her away," the voice murmured. "Or if you're just impossible to love." It giggled again, delighted. "Trust me," it whispered. "I don't find you hard to love at all." Liam squeezed his eyes shut. "If you're real," he whispered, "show up on the recording." The voice went silent, and then, for the first time, it sounded almost curious. "You want me to be seen?" "Yes," he said. "Prove you're not inside my head." The silence stretched so long he thought the moment was over. Then the voice said, almost tender, "Careful what you invite in, Liam." The world snapped back on. TV noise, pipes, hum. 3:14 a.m. The voice was gone. He didn't sleep. He sat up, grabbed his phone, and opened the recording app. 2 minutes and 18 seconds. Good. Perfect. He pressed play. At first, there was nothing. Just the faint rustle of sheets, the tiny distortions from the mic. Then, very softly, his own voice. "You're not real. You're a hallucination." There was a pause as he waited for the other voice to answer. On the recording, the wall never replied. Silence. No breathing, no whisper. Just him speaking into emptiness. He scrubbed forward. "If you're real, show up on the recording." On screen, in the tiny preview window, he could see himself lying stiffly on the bed, staring straight ahead. The room was still. The wall was still. Then something changed. From the corner of the screen, just at the top edge near the ceiling, a black shape curved into frame. Slow, fluid, like spilled ink sliding down glass. It didn't look like a person. It didn't look like a shadow. It looked like the absence of light had become interested in him. As Liam watched, the shape elongated, bending toward his sleeping body. No, not sleeping. Frozen. He saw now that his chest barely moved. The shape hovered just above his face, an inch from his mouth, as if it were listening for his breath. The recording captured no sound at all. At the very end, just before the world noise snapped back, the shape tilted as if looking directly into the lens. For one single frame, the darkness contorted into something like an eye. No pupil, no sclera, just a round, blank, wet circle that felt like it was on the wrong side of the screen. Then the footage cut to static, artifacts tearing across the image. He hadn't touched the file. He hadn't edited anything. But the last second of that clip was corrupted, as if something inside the video didn't want to be seen clearly. Liam replayed it, again and again. Each time the eye seemed a little closer, a little clearer. Or maybe that was just his imagination, slowly cracking. The next day at work, he almost collapsed. Coffee did nothing. He stared at his computer, the words on the screen blurring into sludge. His boss asked if he was okay. He said he was fine. He always said he was fine. He thought about showing someone the video. But what would he say? "Hey, look, I recorded a shadow in my new apartment and now I'm afraid to blink." He knew how that story ended. Pills, evaluations, concerned looks. Someone gently suggesting he take time off. He couldn't afford that. Rent still needed to be paid. Life still moved. So he did what most people do when something is wrong and no one else can see it. He kept it to himself. That night, he decided he would not sleep at all. He stocked the living room table with energy drinks and snacks, left the lights on, put on a loud show, and sat on the couch facing the hallway. The bedroom door stayed open. The shadowed rectangle beyond it looked like a mouth waiting to swallow him. 2:50 a.m. He slapped his cheeks, stood, paced. 3 o'clock. He laughed to himself because his hands were shaking and it felt ridiculous. 3:08. Anxiety crawled up his spine like ants. 3:11. The TV volume dipped suddenly. He grabbed the remote, smacking the buttons. Nothing changed on the display. The volume bar stayed the same, but the sound faded like someone was turning a knob far away. Then it wasn't just the TV. The hum of the fridge died. The distant car outside seemed to melt into silence. 3:12. Every light in the apartment stayed on, but it didn't matter. Because it wasn't the absence of light that terrified him now. It was the feeling, that sick, intimate sensation that every bulb, every reflection, every surface was now eyes. Not his, not human, just watching. The voice didn't come from the bedroom this time. It came from right behind the couch. "You're not in bed," it observed, amused. Liam didn't turn around. "You're not in the wall," he said, barely above a whisper. The voice chuckled, delighted. "You told me to prove I'm not just in your head," it said softly. "So I'm trying new places." He felt breath on the back of his neck. Hot, damp, impossible. "If you don't sleep," it continued, "I can't come close. That's the rule you made. You decided it. You gave me time. 3:12, every night, when you're most tired, when your guard is down." The cushions pressed against him, as if something invisible had leaned over the back of the couch. "You made a door," it whispered, "and you keep unlocking it." His vision blurred. He realized he hadn't blinked in a long time. "Go away," he croaked. The voice exhaled slowly. "But you hate being alone." He blinked, and in the fraction of a second his eyes were closed. Something impossibly cold slid along the side of his face, like a fingertip made of air and teeth. He screamed and flung himself off the couch. The lights snapped. Not off, just wrong. They flickered, colors warping into sickly yellow and deep red, like an old VHS rotting in the player. The hallway stretched. The bedroom door seemed farther away than it should be. The voice whispered from everywhere at once. "You wanted proof," it hissed. "Now you're giving it shapes." He ran to the front door, yanking the lock, the chain, the deadbolt. They turned. The door did not open. The wood shuddered under his hand like muscle. On the wall beside the door hung a cheap mirror he'd brought from his last place. It faced the hallway, catching a thin slice of the bedroom dark. In the reflection, the hallway was longer, narrower, wrong. He wasn't looking at his apartment anymore. He was looking at a stretched, hungry version of it. His phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out with trembling fingers. Unknown caller. 3:12 a.m. Of course. He hesitated. If he answered, he knew who it would be. If he didn't, the buzzing cut through his wrist bones. He answered. He didn't say hello. On the other end, he heard breathing, his own. He knew the rhythm, the cadence, the exact tiny wheeze he'd developed from too much smoking years ago. Then his own voice came through the speaker, distorted and layered with static. "Don't hang up," it said. "He's almost inside." Liam's knees nearly buckled. "Who are you?" he whispered. "You," the voice said. "From the other side of the wall. From the night you finally let him in." A second voice overlapped, the original, the one from the wall, hoarser, delighted. "It's so much easier," it said, "when you teach yourself to be afraid of your own voice." The call distorted, the two voices twisting around each other, his and the thing's, until they were indistinguishable. The lights dimmed until the only real brightness left in the apartment was the pale rectangle of the mirror on the wall. In it, he saw himself, but not quite. His reflection's eyes were a fraction too wide, the skin around them slightly darker, like bruises in the wrong places. And standing behind his reflection was a shape, taller than him, taller than the ceiling should allow. Its head bowed low, its face pressed just beside his ear. The phone crackled. "Ask us the question," the layered voices hissed. "The one you've been thinking every night." His throat worked. "What are you?" he whispered. The reflection smiled. He hadn't moved. The thing behind his reflection leaned closer, its outline warping, spreading across his shoulders like a second skin. "We're what you made, to keep you company," it said. The call dropped. The mirror went black. For a breathless moment, All he saw was his own vague outline in the dark glass. Then, very softly, the reflection blinked. He hadn't. Neighbors reported the screaming around 3:15 a.m. By the time the building manager reached room 303 with a master key, the apartment was quiet. Too quiet. The TV was on, static crackling across the screen. Every light blazed. The bedroom looked untouched, the bed neatly made like a hotel room, as if no one had ever slept in it. Liam's phone lay on the floor by the couch, screen spiderwebbed. No missed calls, no outgoing calls, no recordings, no Liam. He simply wasn't there. His wallet sat on the counter, his keys on the hook, his shoes by the door. The only thing out of place was the mirror. It was turned to face the wall. When the manager shifted it back, the glass showed an empty apartment behind him. Later, the police would log it as a missing person case. No signs of forced entry, no evidence of struggle. Just one odd note scribbled in the margin of a report by a rookie officer. When I stood in front of the mirror in 303, I thought I saw someone standing behind me for a second. Looked like the missing guy. But when I turned around, nothing. Probably just tired. Room 303 was listed as available again 3 months later. The rent was cheaper this time. They never updated the wiring. They never checked the odd power dips at 3:12 a.m. They never removed the mirror. It's still there. They say if you move into room 303 and you're the kind of person who talks to yourself, who hates coming back to an empty place, who sleeps with the TV on so you don't feel watched, there's a night when the building goes too quiet. The clock will say 3:12 a.m. The lights will flicker just a little, and you'll swear, absolutely swear, you heard your own voice whisper your name from somewhere just behind the wall. Maybe it's stress, maybe it's sleep, maybe it's nothing. Just do me one favor. If you ever decide to record it and you watch the footage the next morning, if you see something leaning over you that isn't really there, ask yourself, is it trying to get out of the wall? Or are you slowly learning how to go in? Because some wounds don't bleed. Some wounds watch. And in the midnight wound, they never, ever heal.